You know what is a vector. Now, let us understand types of vectors based on magnitude and direction. The vectors are classified into following types, which are equal vectors, negative vectors, like R, parallel vectors, unlike R, anti-parallel vectors, unit vector, zero vector, R, null vector, coplanar vector, non-coplanar vector, proper vector, co-initial vectors, co-terminal vectors, orthogonal vectors, and mutually orthogonal vectors. Let us see what is equal vectors. This is a point P, and this is the point Q. This is a vehicle, let's say A. Now, vehicle is moved from P to Q towards south direction. This vehicle's displacement from P to Q is represented by a vector A bar, and the magnitude of vector is represented by modulus of A bar. Let us say vehicle is displaced 2 kilometers towards south direction. Let's say another vehicle B also displaced with 2 kilometers magnitude towards south direction. Here, both the vectors are having equal magnitude and the direction. So, we can call them equal vectors. Therefore, A bar equals to B bar. Two vectors having same magnitude and direction are said to be equal vectors. Now let us see what is negative vector. This is a point P, and this is the point Q. This is a vehicle, let's say A. Now, vehicle is moved from P to Q towards south direction. This vehicle displacement from P to Q is represented by a vector A bar, and the magnitude of vector is represented by modulus of A bar. Let us say vehicle is displaced 2 kilometers towards south direction. Let's say another vehicle B displaced with 2 kilometers magnitude in the opposite direction of vehicle A, that is towards the north direction. Here, both the vectors having equal magnitude, but the direction of vectors are opposite to each other. If this direction is positive, then it becomes positive vector. And if this direction becomes negative, then it becomes negative vector, which is A bar equals to minus B bar. Now, if this direction is positive, then it becomes positive vector. Then it becomes negative vector, which is B bar equals to minus A bar. So, we can call them negative vectors to one another. Two vectors having same magnitude but opposite direction are said to be negative vector of one another. Two vectors having same magnitude but opposite direction are said to be negative vector of one another. Now, let us see what is unlike vectors. Let A bar and B bar are two vectors in opposite direction to each other. Let magnitude of A bar and magnitude of B bar are not same. That is, modulus of A bar equals to 2 kilometers but modulus of B bar equals to 3 kilometers. But both vectors are in opposite direction to each other. Now, we can say A bar and B bar are unlike vectors. Two vectors having opposite directions and different magnitudes are said to be unlike vectors or antiparallel vectors. Now, let us see what are like vectors. Here, A bar and B bar have different magnitudes, that is, modulus of A bar equals to 2 kilometers and modulus of B bar equals to 3 kilometers. Now, if these vectors A bar and B bar are in same direction, then we say A bar and B bar as like vectors. Two vectors having same directions and different magnitudes are said to be like vectors or parallel vectors. Two vectors having same directions and different magnitudes are said to be like vectors or parallel vectors. Two vectors having opposite directions and different magnitudes are said to be unlike vectors or antiparallel vectors. Let us understand what is unit vector. A vector having unit magnitude is called unit vector. What is unit magnitude? Let us say this is vector A bar. If the magnitude is meters, then unit of vector is meter. If the magnitude is force, let's say unit is newtons, then the unit of magnitude is newton. How do you define unit of magnitude? Unit of magnitude equals to A bar divided by modulus of A bar. You call unit of magnitude A cap equals to A bar divided by modulus of A bar. A vector having unit magnitude is called a unit vector. Now, let us see what are proper vector and zero vector. Let A bar is a vector with initial point and final point. Its magnitude is modulus of A bar equals to 2 kilometers. Here, magnitude is non-zero. We can say A bar as proper vector if initial point and final point of this vector coincide. Then the magnitude is 0. Now, the direction of this vector is not known. undetermined. We can call this vector as 0 vector, and is represented by O bar. A vector with 0 magnitude and its direction is undetermined is called a 0 vector or null vector. A vector whose magnitude is non-zero, it is called a proper vector. Now, let us see what is coplanar vector. So far, we have seen different types of vectors without referring to xy plane. Now, let's understand about coplanar vectors. These are the airplanes moving on the runway. This is the xy plane. And you can represent the movement of these vehicles by these vectors. Observe, all these vectors lie on the same plane. The vectors which lie in the same plane are called coplanar vectors. The vectors which lie in the same plane are called coplanar vectors. Now, let us see what is non-coplanar vector. Let's say now, one flight is in takeoff. In this mode, the flights are not on xy plane, and it is in different plane. So, it is a non-coplanar vector. The vectors which lie in different planes are called non-coplanar vectors. The vectors which lie in different planes are called non-coplanar vectors. Now, let us see what are called co-initial vectors. This is point O. From this point O, vehicles A, B, C starts moving in different directions. Now, these movement of vehicles are represented by vectors A bar, B bar, C bar. All these vectors share same starting point, which is point O. We can say A bar, B bar, C bar as co-initial vectors. Two or more vectors having same initial points are called co-initial vectors. Now, let us see what is coterminal vector. This is a point T. Now, towards this point, vehicles move and comes to rest at this point. This can be represented by vectors A bar, B bar, C bar. All these vectors share common terminus point. We can say A bar, B bar, C bar has coterminus vectors. Two or more vectors having same final or terminus point are called co-initial vectors. Now, let us see what is orthogonal vectors. Let vehicles A and B are at point O. Now, both start to move away in different directions, such that angle between both directions is 90 degrees. Now these vehicles A and B are represented by vectors A bar and B bar, such that both vectors are perpendicular, or 90 degrees to each other. Then, we can say A bar and B bar as orthogonal vectors. If two vectors are perpendicular to each other, then they are called as orthogonal vectors. Now, let us see what is mutually orthogonal vectors. Now, along with vehicles A and B, a rocket C is also present at point O. Now, all three starts to move away in different directions, such that angle between any of the two objects is 90 degrees. R. All the three objects are orthogonal to each other. Now, this can be represented by vectors A bar, B bar, C bar. And these vectors are perpendicular to each other. Then, we can say A bar, B bar, C bar as mutually orthogonal vectors. Three vectors which are perpendicular to each other are called as mutually orthogonal vectors.